Hello, everyone. How are you? I am Violet, your Tai Chi examiner. And you can see on the screen or in the studio, we have Siobhan Hutchinson with us today. And Siobhan, where you live? And it looks like you live somewhere near the near Florida or tropical area with all the green stuff you have in the background. It just looks beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. Actually, I'm in the very warm state of New Jersey. Um,
Okay.
it's a balmy 38 degrees right now. It's February, it's very cold, but I love having nature indoors, and I'm a bit of a plant fiend, so I have a lot of plants in the background.
Very nice. And for everyone's information, Siobhan is a highly achieved Tai Chi teacher, and she also does the so-called healing work. And she has volunteered herself in various organizations and have been doing very meaningful and important job. I read your bio, Siobhan, and it seems your journey of doing Tai Chi Chuan is kind of accidental and random, right? And you would did not like say you set out say I am going to be this great person and then to help people with the healing, right? And but somehow and your journey and has taken you to many different stages, and then you have grown and learned so much. So today, I really like if you don't mind share your journey with us. How does that sound?
Sounds wonderful. Are you ready?
I'm ready. When was your first understanding of Tai Chi, Qigong, or energy, and or Chinese medicine in that aspect?
I should start off and say that I was raised by very conservative parents. They weren't hippies. They weren't aware of this type of work. In fact, when I was growing up, China was very isolated, and the phrase Nixon opened up China. So during the 70s, the early 70s was the first time Americans actually saw Tai Chi videos of people, to me, they look like senior citizens doing this dance-like form, and they probably were younger than I am now. But as a
You look
teenager,
so good.
as a teenager, you have different eyes, and I thought, wow, that's really graceful. And my mother and I were just in awe of acupuncture. We had never heard of it, never seen it, and to actually have videos of people being operated on and awake during the operation with acupuncture, it was just amazing to us. It was our first exposure of this. And within a very short period of time, I would say within 30 years or so, acupuncture came to this country, and it just blossomed in 30 years. Like almost every town has an acupuncturist, or you have a friend that's had it, or you had it. Whereas before, we really weren't aware of that. Possibly if I lived in a very provincial area, farming area, so possibly in New York City, people knew about it, but it wasn't widely known. So I looked at my mother and I said, "Oh, I want to do this dance-like form." And of course, there wasn't any teachers around my area at the
So
time
you
because
kind of strange as a teenager. You wanted to dance like old people. I got it.
Um, the other thing that happened was in high school, we had a psychology class, and the teacher introduced us into transcendental meditation.
Wow.
And my
Wow.
mother um, was kind enough to drive me to Princeton. So we were about 30 to 40 minutes away. Everything was 30 to 40 minutes away in New Jersey where we lived. And she drove me to Princeton, and we both started taking transcendental meditation. We both had a very, very powerful experience during the, how would you say, attunement. And we tried to continue on our own, but I'll put it gently, a family member in our household didn't understand what we were doing and made it very difficult for us to continue. So it took me into my mid 20s before I actually found a Tai Chi teacher. And it was a Tai Chi Chuan class. I think it was Yan style. And the class was too large. It was over 30 people in the class. It was a beginner's class. The teacher was very young, and she started yelling at me because I wouldn't bend my knees low enough for her taste. And I explained to her that as a dancer, I had dislocated my knee and I didn't
Mhm.
want to go that far. And she just was screaming at me all the
Oh
time.
my God.
And I kept thinking back to the videos with the seniors, and I said, I'm in my mid 20s and I can't do this. I thought there was something really wrong. So I was stubborn. I stayed for the first 30 movements, and then the class ended, and I gave up. I was really upset because it was something I really wanted to do. So,
Yeah, in those early years, and when Tai Chi Chuan first came to U.S., and a lot of people, they fascinated by the art, but they did not really learn it well, and they some people taught Tai Chi Chuan like a martial hostile martial art. Yes, Tai Chi Chuan is martial art, but it is soft style, it's internal. And some people, and they did not really understand. I actually encountered an instructor like that. She was not, very, she did not yell, let's put it that way. But her method of teaching was wrong as well. So I totally understand where you're coming from. And sorry for the interruption. So you had a bad
no,
experience. How come you went back to Tai Chi?
yeah. So it is interesting. I still wanted to do it, but I didn't know what had happened with this class. I didn't understand why I couldn't do it, and it helped me later on become a better teacher to be sensitive to how to work with people. But in any case, I was in medical sales actually for 25 years, and you would not recognize me back then. I looked like I was from IBM, had a blue suit all the time, short hair. And I was in medical sales, and I loved it. I was making good money. And I loved my customers, but I had a lot of people who were my bosses that were very angry and quick to temper. And I was in an association in medical sales, and I was putting together speakers every month for continuing ed credit for the nurses. So the association chair said to me, she said, "Oh, I would really like to have," back then we called it alternative health, panel. And we had a reflexologist,
Mhm.
I think an acupuncturist, and then her teacher who taught Tai Chi Cha. And so for this work function, I was exposed to, this was the early 1990s, I was exposed to some alternative health because, again, I was in medical sales, very Western medicine.
Mhm.
So the teacher of Tai Chi was a very tall gentleman, built like a basketball player. And I looked up at him, and he had a very gentle manner. And I said to him, if I take classes with you, um, are you going to make me bend my knees real low? And he said no. And I said, and are you going to yell at me? He said, whatever happened to you? And then he explained to me that I probably was taking a martial art class, and Tai Chi Cha is more Qigong like. So I actually, for years, drove an hour to take his classes and an hour back to get home. So I was
What's
a very,
his name?
uh,
What's his
um, Daniel. And
Daniel?
he's,
So it wasn't you know,
no,
Justin Stone, because Justin Stone, he is a creator, and I thought that he spent many of his lives in in the West, Colorado or somewhere there, right? Yeah,
Phoenix. I'm
Phoenix.
sorry,
You're
not
right.
Phoenix. Oh, no, no, no. Albuquerque. I'm so sorry. Albuquerque,
Yes,
New Mexico.
one of those
Yeah.
cities or area
So
in the
I
West.
I actually studied with Justin with meditation. I had taken some of his workshops, and I had met Justin Stone. But Daniel was one of his last students. So he
I
directly
see.
learned from Justin. And so for many years, as I said, as a dedicated student, I would travel a great distance. And I'm going to say this, for about 6 years, I studied with Daniel, and he finally looked at me and said, "What are you doing here?" And I was so confused. I was like, "What do you mean? What am I doing here? I'm taking your classes." And the reason I stuck with him and with this particular practice is I would come in so rattled from work, so, rattled by the bosses getting upset and everything. And I would leave the class floating on a cloud. I mean, that really caught my attention, that in 1 hour, my whole outlook could change. And because I was one of the younger ones in the class, I would have people next to me say, "Oh, their arthritis felt better, their back felt better," but I had no chronic illness. So for me, it was the feeling of letting go that kept me going.
Yeah, well,
So
you know what?
I looked at
Yeah, sorry for interruption. I was just going to chime in about my own experience, and but go ahead.
so just he said to me, "What are you doing here?" And I kept saying, I'm taking your classes." And he said, "Well, I think you should become a teacher." And I said, "But I'm making good money. Why would I become a teacher?" I couldn't understand it. So he changed it. He said to me, "Well, if you go through teacher accreditation, your practice will be better." And that caught my attention. So, do you want to say what your experience is, and then I'll
Oh,
continue?
no, I was saying, and because I first learned the Tai Chi Chuan, and actually my first teacher, similar to yours, treat Tai Chi Chuan as a martial art. So when I first saw, Tai Chi Chuan, it's like, what is this, right? I did not know better. And then once I practiced, I say, wow, this feels so good. And I could feel the chi and everything. So yes, and I'm sorry. Sometimes I get
No, I
excited
love it.
easily.
We're two friends talking. This is
That's
fine.
true. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, for a year, I did the Tai Chi Cha practice every single day, took two classes a week, and then a special workshop on the weekends to prepare for the teacher accreditation. So the Tai Chi Cha teacher accreditation is intense. It's a commitment, especially of time and dedication. So I went to the accreditation. It was a couple days long, very intense. I had some very intense experiences during the accreditation. And then at the end of it, I said to myself, this is too good not to share. And even though I didn't want to be a teacher, I decided that I would start teaching a little bit after work, and that's what got me started. And the Tai Chi Cha practice actually, as Elizabeth Lesser from the Omega Institute had said, broken open. It broke me open, and then I was more curious about other practices. So it really it changed my life.
Yes, well, Tai Chi Chair actually has been highly researched and used as a way to train the patients and see the result. And one of the most famous scientists done this work is Dr. Michael Irvin at the Carson Center in UCLA. And he has done fabulous research regarding its beneficial and to increase the immunity and the stability for people, and there's so many of them, and so now your eyes being open, and you are sharing the Tai Chi chair with other people, and then tell us what's going on. It seems your life is just keep enhancing, and then your journey and of Tai Chi or healing are just going deeper and deeper. So you want to share more about that?
Sure. I'll step back for a minute. You and I both were at the Osher conference at the Harvard Medical School where recently where Dr. Michael Irwin from UCLA was the keynote speaker, and he kept saying Tai Chi Cha, Tai Chi Cha, Tai Chi Cha. He has studied it extensively. So any reference to Tai Chi in general improving immunity came from Michael Irwin's studies demonstrating an increase in immunity doing Tai Chi Cha. It also improves sleep quality, symptoms of depression, and Dr. Irwin is also studying with women who have breast cancer and the effects of Tai Chi Cha with that. So there are a lot of studies on this practice, and from my experience of other Qigong practices, the Tai Chi Cha, for me, I feel the Qi quicker. I think it's more accessible to a beginner student than, say, a longer form, but we'll get into that later. So anyhow, I started teaching, and down the road for me, was a how would you say, a hospital for a skilled nursing facility memory care. And I told them, I said, I'd like to bring my practices to you, and I specifically wanted to work with their behavioral health unit, not so much the skilled nursing and memory. The person in charge of the behavioral health was concerned that patient confidentiality would be broken by having me as an outsider work with his residents. And that was unfortunate, and I really felt bad about that. But in any case, I started working with the skilled nursing, and what happened was this. I'm a new teacher, and they bring in people with walkers, canes, wheelchairs. There was one person that was in a jerry bed and could only move her arm like this. That was the only limb that she could move. And what happened was they brought in all these people, I think it was about 15 or 20 of them, and then the aide walked out of the room and left me there. And I didn't know these people. I had never worked with this demographic before. I was a brand new teacher. and I became extremely self-conscious. I like panicked. I didn't know what to do. And something happened that was life-changing for me. Um, I finally let go of my self-consciousness and focused on the practice. And I almost had like an out of body experience. It was like I was watching myself teach. I don't know where this came from, but it was like inspired in the moment. And afterwards, the woman that could just move the one arm into around the platter, that circle, she said to me that she could feel the energy. And they were so grateful to having me work with them that they begged me to come back every week. And it was a life-changing experience for me that this could be that powerful for people, who had limited abilities. It was just amazing how much they received from the practice.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that beautiful, beautiful experience. And then, and I guess, yeah, and when we can really relax, and then like you say that and then when we can give up the expectations, and then we can give up the egos, and then you actually is like you say that another person and just very objectively and observe things. And I think it's just very, very neat. I guess you were in the meditative state yourself, not just your patients, your students, right? And I actually also use Tai Chi chair along with other Qigong modalities and working with people in memory care and also in senior centers. And yes, the patients, the residents were telling me how amazing they feel, and yes, they and sometimes even though they say they could not move, and then they end up moving. So, so thank you for sharing your experience. But you did not stop right there, right? So something is about you. You have that a drive, and you want to just keep going, right? Sorry, I don't know if you could hear me or audience could hear me because I accidentally put you, ping you. So, so I don't know what would happen. So go ahead and tell us what did you do afterwards?
Oh,
Was
so
the
after a few years of a fellow Tai Chi teacher who was a professor at a university, um, said, "Would any of us be interested in a holistic health course?" And I had never like heard of it. I was just kind of curious. They never did get it started, from what I understand, but my ears picked up. Oh, holistic health class. So I was still in medical sales, and I was calling on a case manager at a hospital, and she had a master's degree in holistic health from Georgian Court University in New Jersey. And I said, "May I take you out to lunch? I'd like to know more about this program." So that's what happened. I learned about this master's program in holistic health. I had no idea what I was going to do with this course, with this degree. I had no preconception. But I remember meeting another Tai Chi Cha teacher, and this was out in Arizona. We were at a workshop together, and coincidentally, she was a nurse at one of the hospitals I called on. And she said, "Oh, I used to work at that hospital." And we were talking about it. And she I said, well, what happened? You were a nurse, you had a, position there. She said, well, I was a single mom and I started taking classes on divinity to become a reverend. And I looked at her and I said, wait a minute, you were a single mom, you had a career in nursing. So what were you going to do with the divinity, degree? And she goes, at that time, I really didn't know. I just had faith it was going to work out. And she said the day after she graduated, her friend called her up from, I think it was Arizona, and said, we need a reverend out here. She picked up her family. She moved there. She found her second husband. And she was like Isadora Duncan. She had this like open air car with a scarf. And she was telling me this story with the scarf. And I just looked at her and I was just in awe. It hit me so hard that here she took a chance. She didn't know what she was going to do with that degree. And that's how I felt about the holistic health program. I didn't know, but it opened me up to learning more about meridians and chakras. And we had a energy medicine professor who was really amazing. And she introduced me to Donna Eden's work. So my thesis was due in a week, and Donna Eden's program was going to start. So it starts at the same time each year, or at least it used to. And I didn't want to wait another year to take the first year. So imagine your professor is sending you all these corrections. I knew when I got back, I would only have a few days to get the thesis all together. And I took a chance and I flew out to Phoenix, Arizona to study with
Were
Donna.
you still working that time?
Yes. Yes.
You were still working?
Yes.
So I guess there's a calling, and then so doesn't matter, I have to go, right?
Yes. But I also knew in my heart, for some reason, I knew, and I knew this about Tai Chi Cha too. I knew when I did the teacher accreditation, it was going to change things for me personally. It did change my personal life. And I knew with the Donna Eden program that I was risking my job. And it did. Because I had to fly out 4 times a year to Phoenix to take her classes. And it's a long story, but in any case, yes, it did affect my job. So I went out there and I thought, now this is my ego. I thought, well, I know what a chakra is and I know what a meridian is. So Donna Eden's class is going to be a piece of cake. Well, after that first weekend, I had my tail between my legs and I almost quit. And I told Donna Eden, I told her and David, her husband, this a couple of times. I said, you know what? I learned more from you than I did in grad school. And it was more an intense experience than my grad school. We learned so much. And her program opened my eyes into understanding more about the meridians, how they interrelated with other energy systems, the Chinese medicine philosophy. We learned acupuncture points. It made me a better teacher, and again, opened me up. So each experience, I always say to people, the education is never a waste. You're always going to use it. So take that leap of faith, even though you might not know what you're going to do with that degree. But it just pulled everything together for me. And I continue to study with Donna Eden and her key staff. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. I like how you put it. And yeah, a lot of time, I guess that's the calling you had. Even though you did not know what you're going to do with that education, but somehow your gut knows, right? And sometimes say the gut is the second brain, and it knows better. And in a lot of time, and it's just like the Lao Tzu, the Taoism philosophy, yes, we don't want to be so. Yes, exactly. If I do that, I will get there. Whatever, it's wu wei. You do without have too much expectation. You just go with that, and your gut feeling, and don't have too much expectation. And then, yeah, good thing will happen. And this is, and I guess you are the true testament of these kind of things. And this is wonderful. And then you've been doing so much and in this healing art, and besides teaching, you have been devoting yourself to the transformation project with Bill Douglas, who's the founder of the World Tai Chi and Qigong Day. And then can you talk a little bit about that, and what is your expectation? Even though it seems a lot of times you just go with the flow, and
Right.
but uh, um but can you say a little bit about
Sure.
what this project is
Uh,
supposed to be?
Thank you so much for asking. So Bill and Angela Douglas are the founders of World Tai Chi and Qigong Day, which was started, I think, over 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they're instrumental in educating people on what these mindfulness practices are. So Bill's written a beautiful book. It's thick as a Bible on the science of mindfulness practices. And it's, oh, you're getting the book, Violet?
Yes, I was
It's
trying
called
to.
it's called the Gospel of Science.
Yes, I had a
Um,
book, but yeah, I'm just looking at my bookshelf.
yes.
Mhm.
And it's called The Gospel of Science, and it has over 30 years of research studies that Bill has been collecting. And his focus now, his and Angela's focus now, is on the Global Transformation Project, which is to educate people on mindfulness practices for health benefits. And his intention is to have people sign a petition, and we can put that link in this video if I can send that to you,
That would
to
be
sign
great. Mhm.
the petition to the UN to recognize mindfulness practices. That could be yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, any type of meditation, mindfulness practice, to recognize this and to have the education system incorporate these practices into the education system. And I've got to tell you, Violet, had I known some of the work that I do now as a teenager, I would have been an even better student than I was. I had to work very hard. You know, some people, they pick up a book and, they ace the test. I would have to really, it was laborious for me. And I had a lot of tension about learning. And had I had some of these practices as a teenager, I think I would have been even better a student and more relaxed. It's a full lifestyle experience. In any case, um, Bill had invited me to help out with the how would you say, education of these mindfulness practices. And for about a year and a half, we invited notable researchers on all different mindfulness practices, including what is consciousness, having these provocative discussions with scientists, and putting them on YouTube to have people start to think about these practices and how beneficial they would be in the educational system. So we invite people to sign the petition and invite people to look at the YouTube videos. Everything is for free. We're all volunteers. We weren't getting any money out of this. We're spending a lot of time producing these programs.
Well, that's very admirable, and I really, really appreciate and your contribution and what you're doing. That's yeah, that's amazing.
Well,
Thank you for doing that.
oh, I'm,
Yeah, I know there are a lot of research on these things, especially from the University of Wisconsin. They have a very large research institute, and they found out that children, school kids, and when they go through these mindfulness practice, and the bullying in the school went down, and then the student grades improve. So yes, and it is not just hypothetically; it
yes.
actually can generate really, really positive results in these students. So it is great that and you are helping and with the project. And thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, please. It's Bill and Angela. I'm just a supportive role, and I loved helping them out, and actually I love talking to these researchers because it just expands your mind. But I would like to say our mutual friend, Dr. C.J. Rhodes, who's a
Yes.
professor at Kutztown University,
Mhm.
had done a study with her students doing Tai Chi prior to taking an exam and a control group. And
That's
the,
the college level, right? That's college,
yes,
her students at college
yes,
level. Mhm.
yes. And found with the study that those had taken the Tai Chi before the exam actually did better.
Yeah,
So
it's
that,
so interesting because I remember my school days, and right before the test, I was still reciting all these kind of things and getting very, very nervous and very anxious, and at the same time, I probably should just do the Tai Chi practice and have better grades, right? Yeah, I guess that, and that probably makes perfect sense. And in my own experience, and back in Taiwan, we had so-called joint entrance exam from grade school to middle school, from middle school to high school, and from high school to college. We all the kids in the nation taking the same test on the same day. And so when I got my math question, and I look at it, I knew the answer, but all of a sudden I drew blank. I did not remember how to, because
mhm,
it's a problem solving question. It's not just, multiple choices.
yes.
I totally drew blank. I knew the answer, but I could not do it. If I had a mindfulness practice, it probably would not be a issue. So yeah, it's incredible, and what mindfulness and can help us, and that's
That
great.
was That was my experience too. I had very good grades, but when we had to do the SATs, I just got so nervous and uptight. And I remember too in college having that same side of anxiousness. Now, if they gave me a paper to write, I could
Mhm.
do that beautifully because I'd be by myself and I had the quiet and I could do it. But a test environment, it was just too much. So yes, these practices would have helped me immensely for those type of testing. Had the same experience as you, Violet.
So I am not weird. It's just a human being's natural reaction response. Well, Donna and I mean Donna, I mean Siobhan.
Yes.
Siobhan, I had so much fun talking to you today, and then I have learned a lot, a great deal from you, and I really appreciate that you spend your valuable time and on this beautiful Saturday with us. Of course, I don't know when we broadcast this, which day that would be, but thank you again so much for coming to this program. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
for
very much.
inviting me. Thank you for inviting me. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for your interest. I appreciate it.
Thank you.